Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to Just Be with Rakesh and Derek Allen. And getting right into this. So, Rakesh, what is today's
Hi,
episode
Derek.
and topic about?
Hi, Derek. So, welcome to Just Be. And as you know, we in this podcast we talk about day-to-day objects, our relationship with those objects, our perceptions, our relations, our experiences, the meanings we create and relate with those objects. So that's what we do in Just Be. In today's episode, we are going to talk about another object, which is rivers in our life. But today we have a special guest with us, Katrina Apolito. She is a counselor, mental health counselor at the University of North Florida in the University Counseling Center.
Swoop.
So it's going to be very exciting today, talking about rivers. So let me start with asking both of you, and I'll come to that later, about uh, your personal experience with rivers. So maybe like share a personal story or a memory related to a river, and how was that experience?
Well, I would have to say that the first time I was at a river, it was very different because I had always grown up around the ocean, which is always about kind of being in one place and kind of watching the waves come in. But they just kind of were repetitive, like an obsessive thought over and over again. But the river was actually going somewhere. And I remember the first time when I had traveled from where I was from here to Vermont, and there was a river, and we jumped into it, and it was deep, and it took your breath away, and it was almost like waking back up again, and to kind of just the coldness and the movement of it was very special compared to anything that I had ever experienced before.
When did it happen? Like when you were like in your adolescence or early adulthood, or
like college.
College? Okay.
Yeah, so I had been an ocean girl. I had been a beach girl. And then once I moved up north, I really saw the power of the river. I would walk by it. My apartment was near this bridge that would go over the river, and at different times it would freeze. And then you would see some of the water would be moving, and some of it, the ice made it still, and it was ever changing. It was just this beautiful thing that you could see, and it almost felt like it was alive. It was so very different than anything I had experienced before that.
Thank you, Katrina, for sharing your personal experience story with this river. Derek, what is your memory or a story related to a river?
I'm not that big on to be honest with you, I'm not that big about hanging out in nature like that. However, the river per se, I would say it might have been about around 2016 or 17. I was working with this organization called Mimi TV Jacks, and we were filming a gentleman named Jim Alabiso, and he was swimming the St. Johns River, and we followed him from JU campus all the way to the bank where they do the Riverside Arts Market. And it was a bunch of boats. It wasn't just him, it was a couple other people. But we rode across the river, the St. Johns River, got real close to those little deserted islands over there, and really I was trying to take the camera to see if I could see anything on the islands. But that's really my experience of the river per se. It's not as deep as yours was, and there's nothing really truly connection, but I saw the love of the river by the city of Jacksonville for the St. Johns. I saw how the St. John's means so much to a lot of different people here in the city. And then the gentleman, Jim Alabiso, He used to write for one of the local arts magazines here in the city. I'm drawing a blank on which one, but he always did poems or did stories around the river and seeing his love for the river and that connection to it and what it meant to him and a bunch of other people. It opened up my eyes how important St. John's River and even the people that work for the St. John's River Keepers and supporting their efforts showed me how important it is.
Thank you for sharing that, Eric. My experience, first of all, I want to respond to like St. John River. So the name itself is a male name, St. John, right? In India, I'm originally from India. So in India, the rivers is a feminine gender. So all the names in Indian rivers are feminine names, not St. John, St. Mary. So we have name called Ganga, Yamuna, Kaveri, all these different names which are feminine names. So that's came to my mind when you took this name of St. John River. But coming back to my personal story about or memory about rivers, I grew up in rural India. So and near my village, this big river called Ghagra or Saryu. And this river is like a big river in monsoon season, like very wide, almost more than a kilometer wide river. In winters, the waters are more clearer because in monsoon season you have a lot of other things mixing, dust and everything. So the river is not as clean. But in summer, the water is so clear. And we as an adolescent, I used to go and just take shower in the river. So it was fun times for us. And also every time, not every day, but like almost a couple of days in a week, because the river was like half a kilometer from my house. So it was like you can just simply wake up in the morning and just take a walk around the river bank. So that is my earlier memory about this river, which was still, the memory sort of resurfaces every time I talk about it. So tell me about another thing that comes to my mind is about a river. So in my geography class in middle school, we used to read about rivers in India and across the world. So I read about Nile River in Africa, like one of the biggest river. And I was mesmerized about how, because during the oral exam or written exam, one question was it was like, this is going to come in our exam. And the question was, why Nile River is called the lifeline of Africa. So this I used to imagine about, because we were living in rural India. So I was just imagining how majestic that river would be, which is called the lifeline of Africa. And then I read about some rivers in China, which was like a big rivers, and their names were very like funny names, like Yang Tisi Kiang, and all these names. So we were so that was my initial conceptual understanding, like abstract, because you're not physically present in those locations, but you are imagining based on what your social science teacher is teaching you about the biggest rivers or around the world. So that comes to my mind thinking about. So do you guys have any favorite river, like a river which is your favorite one, based on how many rivers, I don't know, you have visited up to now? Or maybe none?
Rivers without snakes in them and water moccasins. So probably more northern rivers. I would have to say. I think what keeps me maybe similar to you, Derek, is that I don't go into the rivers here because of the alligators and water moccasins. So I don't feel like it is as welcoming as, let us say, other rivers in what I've been exposed to. But I think you are right. I think, something I didn't realize till I moved to another place is how essential the rivers were. Like all the mills and the buildings, were built near the rivers for the power. It really powered the town. Even when I visited like Savannah and the amazing river that the gigantic barges come down, you realize that this was a lifeline of trade. And with our world today, with planes and cars, we sometimes forget that, that they were the lifelines, and still in some places is. Yeah.
And that's why if you read history, all the great cities were developed nearby a big river, because obviously at that time it was a medium of transportation, and obviously for life you need water, so clean water. So rivers were the source of that. So all the civilizations, big cities, ancient cities, modern cities developed around some rivers.
Yeah, I mean, you can see that in a lot of American cities, Pittsburgh. On that Three River Stadium, how all three rivers connect, and that's like one of the biggest identities up there. They love that. They love it. They make sure they like to highlight it. They want to tell everybody all about it. Even here in Jacksonville, how people use the port all through the river. I mean, that is a lifeline for the city to be what they are and what they're doing out there for those merchant seamen and everybody else that work in the port areas. The river by itself, when it comes to the economical aspect of the society, is one of the biggest cultural aspects that people have to look at, because it's like, hey, you need water to survive. And you need fresh water to survive. B, you need transportation, the type of transportation that you can move without worrying about gas and sometimes horses. Last but not least, you got to be able to power. And like you said earlier, Kristen, right?
Katerina.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry with that. on first go arounds. But like Kalina stated earlier, you need water to power things that you don't have energy for. You don't have electricity for. So in the earlier times, yes, water meant everything to so many societies. Now when you're looking at it in the spiritual sense, I look at it as like it means transition. So that's what really water is, like either it's transition or it's baptizing, because you're washing something, you transition to the next. So I mean, even the river, like, I'm thinking about a gospel song where it's like, go down to the river. You're going down to the river so you can become something better. You can become renewed in the spirit, and hopefully rejuvenated to become a new person. So now when I think of river, it's not even in any of the senses I even spoken about. It's always in the sense of religion or spirituality is where we change.
Right, yeah.
Or wash away whatever it is so we can become renewed.
Yeah, and also understanding the flow of life, how a river, I mean, some philosopher, I don't remember the exact name, it says, you cannot walk a river twice. Meaning that obviously second time when you are walking, the water has passed. So river is not the same. The river is changing every second because the water is passing, changing.
Well, not even just the water. The river erodes everything around it. So in sand, soil, ground, that's not the same. Your path that you walked across the first time is not the same path that you walked before, because some of that is washed away.
Exactly. And like even when you, like you're saying, people go down to the river to be transformed and change, and even the step of walking into that river is changing the path of the river. So it's interactive. It's not something static. It's something moving.
Right. Constantly changing.
And we step into it and we're changing its flow. It can also be strong and have us float away if it's too strong.
Like the Swanee.
Yeah. So you have to be careful of your steps sometimes.
I've heard too many stories from other people who've gone down to the Swanee, and it's just like, oh, you wasn't ready, were you? That's why I never gotten in there.
So let's keep talking about the symbolism and meaning that we associate with rivers in different cultures, So what is your experience, Katrina, about both personally, what meanings, symbolism you associate with rivers? Derek, you pointed out a little bit about the meaning of change, rejuvenating, washing away, What is your personal meaning and symbolism that you have with rivers?
I think because my experience with river kind of came later in life, I think of it more from like the counseling or psychological perspective, as I kind of view our life as a journey on a river, and like there's different obstacles that we have to flow around,
Right.
and certain times we get dammed up, and I think more with the counseling, getting more into mindfulness and kind of letting things be. I think that the river is kind of like letting our thoughts pass, kind of like letting things kind of flow down the river instead of getting stuck on things. So I kind of think of it more, not more as like a cultural thing, but more like a psychological perspective that I sometimes share with clients of just let things flow by you, let your emotions flow through you rather than let them getting all stopped up, all dammed up,
There is a lot to learn from rivers, right?
Well, I think so.
Yeah, symbolism. For me, like I remember, generally in the evening, I used to walk to the river and just sit at the bank. And normally, uh, there were not a lot of people there in my village, so it was mostly like desolated. So you simply go and sit and just see the current. And it was in itself, I didn't realize it at that time because I was not a mental health counselor. Uh, at that time, just being near the river, just looking at the current, just sitting there quietly made me feel better. Um, so after I become a counselor, I was like, wow, there is something therapeutic about rivers, right? So, so in your experience as a mental health counselor, could you talk about uh, some of the ways you use this metaphor to support client well-being? Uh, and I heard there are some therapeutic interventions as well, such as ecotherapy, where you take your client in some natural setting and you do the counseling work. So could you talk about those things? Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I wish we did. I think we're on our way at UNF to kind of get more ecotherapy going, but we kind of have hit some red tape.
Ain't we all?
But, I would have to say, like, on a very concrete level with my clients, I've done it as art activities where they depict a river of their life, and the rocks in the river are the obstacles, and the driftwood are the things that support us. And I borrowed that from the Kawa model of psychology from Japan. So I've used it in that sense.
If you don't mind
So
me
could you
interrupting, because I want you to explain that just a little bit more, because what you just said, I think I want to do that with my students on Thursday and Friday. Honest to God, like that sounds like an awesome activity for me to have the kids depict the rocks in their river that they feel like are either slowing up their flow
Exactly.
or damming up what's happening for either their lives or their education.
Right. And it's like when in certain times, if you have so many rocks, we get stuck and kind of dammed up. And if we have different things that'll carry us, like I kind of look at as our relationship with other people that are kind of the driftwood that help us keep flowing down the river when we feel like the river might pull us under, so it's like you only need one person, one significant person for someone to be resilient. Or for some people, it might not be a person. It might be the ability to go out in nature. There's this one poet who I later found out had a trauma history, and like she had had to escape her house, and the way she did that is she had like a notebook, and she went out in nature and found the metaphors there of what she needed to do to kind of as to escape kind of the world that she was in into another place.
Disassociation.
But positive disassociation,
yes.
in the sense that you're creating something. She was creating words and poetry that now people read and can kind of find comfort in. But yeah, so in a very concrete way, I can do it with that exercise. But oftentimes, like, people will come into the office and you might tell them to, like, the basic thing is breathe. And when you're having a panic attack, like, you don't feel like you want that person to just shut up already. Like, I am breathing. But, if you have them picture a river and to imagine the emotions flowing through you or flowing past you, I think that's much easier for the brain to grasp than a cognitive word of, like, take a deep breath. We can all picture things flowing.
Yeah.
Be it the St. John's or the Nile,
right.
or...
It reminds me of one article that I wrote about. So I'm a big fan of mindfulness, and I learned about Vipassana meditation, which is like focusing on your breathing. One of the good thing about breathing is it is always with you. So no matter where you are, you carry that with you. And in that sense, I think focusing on your breathing, it's one of the simplest way to ground yourself, no matter where you are, in what conditions you are. And then as I said previously, I share a very deep connection with rivers because of my, growing up near this river. So I was thinking about, okay, like how I can carry the river also with me, just like my breathing. And I realized breathing is also a river of life, going in, going out. So thinking about my breathing as a river, that sort of, I think, like made that connection even deeper. So it's like me as a person, me as an individual, is an observer observing this river, and my breathing is the river, symbolically speaking, obviously. So it's like I close my eyes and I imagine myself as sitting at this river of breathing and just looking at this river without any judgment. And that really helped me a lot, a very powerful experience, very similar to what I experienced while sitting at a river bank looking at the river. So that was very powerful to me. I don't know, I haven't done that, but maybe I can try with some clients as well and see if it works.
Well, sometimes I don't think you even have to be there, like physically. I know that, like, different times when I've been stressed and my mind goes back to this time when I was at front of this waterfall with my daughter. I don't know, and it was in the middle of COVID and lockdown, and we had kind of gone out to the river before all these other people were there because we were trying to be safe, and we were, 6 feet away. But it was like, after being so confined, that now was a sense of, like, freedom and, like, just relief. So even now, today, long past that time period, my mind goes back to that when stress. It's like, oh, I can hear the river, I can hear the waterfall, I can picture myself and my daughter, like, doing that together, and it brings a sense of comfort. And yeah, I'm not in like Boone, North Carolina. I'm in Florida, but you can carry that with us. Like, I think you can carry your breathing with you. You can carry your memories with you and bring comfort to yourself when you're in different places.
I remember some years ago working for the Leon County school system as a substitute teacher, I would have situations when kids were hyperventilating because of issues, and my boyfriend broke up with me, blah, 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 blah. It's like, okay, hold on, time out. I want to hear what you got to say, but I need you to breathe. Like, I always use breathing as a way to calm down, calm the body, but then calm the mind, so that now you can think clearly, so now we can have a conversation, and that you're just not speaking wildly in emotions. You can actually think through this a little bit better.
Exactly. And I think the more I learn about it, about the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system, like the intake of breath is sympathetic, which gets us ready and aroused, but the parasympathetic is the exhale, which then calms our system down. So you're absolutely right. If you could get your students to like do that exhale, and kind of, it does like calm the body right down.
Well, there's been times I've done with, maybe not here, but in some of my substituting days, I had the kids like, okay, before we start, because I see everybody's riled up, I want y'all to stand up. And everybody stands up. It's like, okay, I want you to close your eyes and I want you to breathe. Breathe in, think about all the good things that could happen right now. Breathe in all the positivity. Breathe in, don't breathe in little Johnny stink breath, but breathe in everything else that you could think of that could make your day great. And when you exhale, I want you to let go of whatever the issue and the problem is. Whatever it is that's bothering you today, whatever it was that happened this morning, whatever your ex or your current, whatever, let it go. And those are the best classes. Those are the best classes to sub afterwards.
Sometimes I feel like when you're sitting at a river bank and when you see this flowing river, somehow the time stops a little bit. Time stops in the sense like, yes, you think about, you might reflect on certain issues and things in your life, but somehow it sort of have a pausing effect as well. That's my experience with the rivers. Like when you sit at the bank of the river, sort of help you to switch off from everything around and maybe focus on one thing or something that you want to think, and maybe some issues you are dealing with, and sort of reflect on those things. Let's switch gears and talk about culture, environment, and rivers. We all hear about climate change and how it has impacted environment and around us and everything. So how do you look at it? And to give it more context, I can talk about like in Indian context, obviously there are some rivers which are a little bit more polluted, that some rivers are more cleaner. And these are happenings because of the relationship between the human and the rivers and how it has changed over the years. So what do you think about, Katrina, about this thing, our relationship? Not our like individually, but overall as a culture, as a community, how do you see our relationship with rivers have evolved over the years?
Well, I think it depends on what kind of people and what kind of environment like you're in. I know that there was, I think I heard about like this idea to like make the St. John's River deeper so we can get the big barges in for business. But not really thinking about, okay, what is going to be the impact if we do that? What is it going to do to the things that we can't, like, how is it going to impact
the life
that's in it? And we don't even know kind of like the impact. Like, for example, in the 1900s, they brought kudzu over from Japan thinking it was beautiful. And yes, it probably was beautiful, but, in Japan it got colder, so it died off in certain seasons. In Florida, it's taken over the trees and become like parasitic. So a lot of times we don't know we don't know what we're doing when we impact the environment. And I think certain areas of the country, I think, are better at kind of investigating what might happen. But I think sometimes I think in the American culture, I think it's more like this is the land and this is what we're going to do with it, as opposed to like indigenous people might say we are a part of the land and it is part of who we are and it's a balance. And I don't think we always understand that.
Yeah. Derek?
Okay, so with how everything is going and the fact that we're such a capitalistic society, not just America, the world, I know that we're not respecting it like we should, period. Too many rivers, just bodies of water, period, are being polluted. I ended up, this morning I was watching a video on Instagram, and it showed a barge pulling, I think it said almost two tons of trash out the ocean, off the bottom, like scraping the bottom and just dragging up stuff from the bottom of the ocean. And I thought it was pulling up a sperm whale. That's what it looked like this big bag that was pulling all this trash up. It looked like a sperm whale I thought it was a dead sperm whale was pulling up on the back of the boat. But no, this was trash. This is trash from the bottom of the ocean. So certain rivers are just as polluted, like the St. John. We're going back here in Jacksonville because they say that if you jump into St. John with an open wound, God bless your soul. Because that's why I was looking at Jim when he did that, like,
not safe.
Oh, buddy. God bless you, buddy. So there's so many things that we as a society have taken for granted. And one of them being every ounce of water on this world that keeps us safe, that keeps our world moving, that allows the plants to grow, that allows the animals to drink, and it allows us to live as well, allow us to fish on, allow us to go out and make an economical system for ourselves. And we take it for granted every day, whether it's the river, a lake. That's why I grew up in Tallahassee. There's so many lakes in Tallahassee. So that's what I'm used to seeing, are lakes, not rivers. So, and I'm also just seeing alligators almost every one of those lakes. So it's like I'm used to seeing fishermen going out on the lakes. I'm used to seeing families on the shore or at a pier fishing and just having a great time, great time for everybody. And you barely seeing that nowadays, whether it's because of pollution, whether it's because of social media and the fact that people don't go out of their houses or stay off their screens. It's many factors that keeps us and keeps the rivers maybe not like it was when we were in our youth.
Yeah, and I think that's a concern across the world, not only Jacksonville here. In India, I think one of the rivers called Yamuna is super polluted. Government is trying to clean the river, but still the rivers are not as clean as it used to be. And one of the reasons is the industrial pollution. So a lot of industries which are at the bank, like the big cities are at the bank of the river, and then a lot of factories and their sewage water and those things, sort of government trying its best to stop that, but still not fully stop it. So that also causes a lot of pollution, and sort of I look at it like the rivers are also drying up. Some rivers are like not having enough water in summer because of the climate change and all these changes happening because of in the last 100 years of industrialization and everything. That's obviously a big concern. I want to go back to the mental health piece, and Katrina, how how we can.
Hold on, before you go any further.
Go ahead.
Catalina.
Katerina.
Katerina. Not Katrina. Katerina.
So, thank you, Derek.
No problem. That's what co-host does. You know, we make sure the host
Okay.
doesn't make too much of a fool of himself.
So
Look at
how
her.
do
She
you,
turned red.
so how do you look at like using rivers as a resource, sort of helping communities, people in their mental health? How we can use it? What to our listeners, if you could say like, what kind of relationship, how community leaders can use rivers as a resource to support mental health of the people in the community?
Well, I think that a lot of people think of mental health in the therapist office, and I think that's very limited. Not everybody wants to go into a therapy office, but can we get kids more involved with the environment, more connected with nature? Like, for example, when I do an art workshop, like, the students will tell me, oh my gosh, I feel so relaxed. I feel so much better. If I told them in my office to like, let's be still and be, they'd be like, no, I have too many assignments to do. I have these 10 assignments and I can't be still and there's stuff to do. And why are you even suggesting this? But if you open up a space for it, like open up the door to do art, to go outside, then I think it welcomes like more people like getting the mental health needs met in a way other than what's traditional. Because as you know, it's probably substitute teaching. Like one way of teaching does not work for everybody, correct, Derek?
Amen to that.
Yeah. So we need to reach people in all different ways. So maybe it's like doing more things outside. Like I was a part of doing this poetry activity outside for Earth Week. It was student directed. It was wonderful. Like it got people to think about writing in nature in a way that they hadn't before. So I think, to use a pun, we need to get our feet wet. We need to kind of put ourselves in the river and kind of be out there rather than kind of just staying on our screens in our offices and kind of see. Like you said, you wouldn't have figured out all those things if you didn't necessarily sit by the river earlier. And I think sometimes we need to kind of get wet. We need to do more things rather than think.
2 minutes what? We can edit it later.
All right, cool. Hey, you want Mr. 40 minutes and whatnot, so
So we have 40 minutes?
Well, just to let you know, it was 2 minutes. I was silently trying to let you know.
2 minutes to 40.
2 minutes.
We'll edit
minutes
it.
left.
Don't worry.
What are you talking about? This is the best parts of the bloopers. That's what people come to listen for. Are the parts where we mess up at, quote unquote.
All right, so let's have a final, comments from both of you, including me as well. Any final thoughts? Anything that you think I didn't ask or we didn't cover about rivers, meanings, relationships?
Ladies first.
I think there's always more to say, but I think we made a good a good bit of it, But I've enjoyed the conversation and the different perspectives, and helps me think about the world in a broader way. So.
One thing I forgot to share about how, particularly in cultural context, rivers in India are given the status of a goddess. So you have different types of gods and goddesses. So rivers are considered as goddess, and there are certain festivals where a part of the ritual is you go to the river bank and then you offer prayer to the river. So generally people in the morning, they, and I've seen that like a lot of people do. So you go, like if it is a morning time, you enter the river, maybe like a chest, and then you take water and then you offer this water to the you keep your face towards the sun, rising sun, and you offer with some chanting to the river. So it's sort of offering prayer, both river as well as the sun also as a god. In fact, there is a festival called Chhat festival. So what happens, women, and this is really interesting. So women, they in this festival, what they do in the evening, they march toward the river in a group. There are some songs and some rituals, and they go to the river evening time, and they enter the river like the knee deep or waist deep, and then they face the sunset, setting sun, and they offer prayers to the sun god. And then they come home after the sunset, and then they spend the whole night, certain rituals and all those things. They don't sleep. And then early in the morning, around 5, 1 hour before the sunrise, they again go back to the river, and then this time they face the rising sun. They stand in the water knee deep, have all these fruits and vegetables, sort of an offering to God's Son, and they wait for the sun to arise. And once the sun came up, then they offer the prayers, take a dip in the river, they come up and then come home. So it's like a you start in the evening, so you worship the setting sun, and then you also worship the rising sun, sort of completing the cycle. And river is a big part of this festival across India. So let's say if I'm living in a city and there is no river around me, people create like a ready-made pool, in whatever you could manage, maybe a big bucket, fill it with water, and then you stand and face the sun. So based on your, where you are, this ritual is followed. Last year, this festival is celebrated around October. So I was reading this news here in Jacksonville where women, they use the ocean to celebrate this festival, like Jacksonville Beach. Not a lot of them because there's not a lot of people here from India. So what I want to say is, like, when you look at river as a goddess, in the sense that you value this nature, you value the part that these rivers play in your life. And it is this celebration once in a year is a sort of saying thank you, being grateful to the rivers. I think that's one thing that really stood out to me and sort of played a role growing up also as the reason how I developed this deep connection with the river.
Beautiful. That was beautiful. I mean, like I said, I don't have any other parting words other than let things flow. And
I love
just
that.
be.
Just be.
Just
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I want to tell you, all the listeners, to visit a local river, maybe a pond, if not a river. Go there. I know maybe sometimes there are a lot of mosquitoes in the river, but you can find a good time for you to just go spend some time. If not sitting, staying, just take a walk around the river, look at the river, and share your reflections.
Well, it's the summertime, so go around, high noon. Mosquitoes will be gone by then. It'll be very hot, but mosquitoes will
Yes.
be gone.
and kind of laid out, not near the rain. Like, so if there's been some days since rain, you're safer from the mosquitoes.
Yes, true.
Maybe that's an issue for another Just Be is mosquitoes. Who knows?
I like that.
Buy some off. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, we love you. God loves you. Just be. Deuces.
Woohoo.